Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate, 5 days after a gossip magazine published photos of François Hollande involved in an alleged affair. The French president holding his regularly scheduled New Year's press conference. We're talking about it with a Socialist Member of Parliament, Valérie Trierweiler, also joining us. Welcome back to Minter Dial, public relations consultant and blogger. Bastien Lecause, co-founder of the young business owners advocacy group, the Sparrows, Les Moineaux.
And I'm an entrepreneur.
And an entrepreneur
main,
as well, who does business selling to China, I believe, as well.
I buy from China.
You buy from China?
I'm about to sell in China.
You're about to sell in China. Okay, there we go. We're going to be talking about the economic message in a moment of François Hollande. And also with us, pollster Raphaël Leclerc, co-founder of Délit d'Opinion. We were talking before the break about the image of the president, even though this is a private matter, as François Hollande told reporters earlier. One socialist minister, quoting at the start of the day, is bemoaning that the president of the republic is caught looking like a pizza delivery man, a point picked up on implicitly by the leader of the opposition Conservatives.
Privacy should be respected. It shouldn't be mixed up with public action. But we say that this affair, the way it was revealed, has an extremely negative impact on the image of the French president. I won't go any further. He's the one who should decide what to say and what to do.
An extremely negative impact. Raphaël Leclerc, has that been the case so far in the surveys that you're monitoring?
If we look at the polls that had been conducted during the weekend, the impact is absolutely known. For the moment, the only poll published by Ipsos showed a 1 point increase for François Hollande. So according to French public opinion, there is no such impact at that point.
No such impact for the time being. Valérie Trierweiler?
It's true that so far there is no... People do not care. French people do not care about private life. It's what is said in the polls. There is huge difference between François Hollande maybe and Nicolas Sarkozy, is that François Hollande does not leverage on his private life. This is, as you mentioned before, this is not a political asset for him. He does not use it as a political asset or as a leverage to gain some votes, etc. So I think this is crucial to have it in mind.
All right, the cover story of Newsweekly Paris Match puts the presidential couple on the cover. Hollande's partner, who, by the way, happens to be a journalist at the said publication. And let me ask you this question, Minter Dial. How's this going to play in, not within the Parisian circles, but elsewhere in France, among ordinary people?
Well, I think that in France it is considered non-important. What I look at is also what's sort of subconscious, and I think that there's an issue of confidence in the direction this country has. And I don't necessarily fault Hollande. I mean, I don't support him. I don't support what's going on. But I think that the issue of confidence has been lacking in quite a long time. So this is just going to continue to, I think, it's not going to help anyway, the confidence in the direction of the country and the direction of the leader. That's my opinion.
Ahead of the press conference, Le Parisien newspaper headlining, meanwhile, and putting on its front cover, a smiling and tan Nicolas Sarkozy, the conservative, beaten by Hollande in 2012, more and more thinking comeback, writes the paper, but within his own UMP party, there seems to already be dissent. The only successful comeback was by Berlusconi, so says former Prime Minister Alain Juppé. How much mileage is Nicolas Sarkozy going to get out of this? He is obviously seriously considering a comeback.
Well, I think it's not anymore a secret. Nicolas Sarkozy wants to come back on the political field. I think he needs time maybe to see how the political theatre is playing without him, and so far it's pretty good for him because the UMP party, the left and the left-wing parties are not in a good shape. And so I think the 2014 year, we have several elections, local elections, European elections. This will dictate how his sequence for coming back.
So still a long time to go before the presidential election.
To come back, you need a strong party in France. You can't come back without any strong party. And so far we will see for the next election, especially European one, what will happen for the UMP.
Now, as for the president himself, his re-election chances hinge, and you were saying a moment ago, on whether or not, obviously, growth increases and his credibility. Is this going to in any way have an impact on his credibility when he announces major reforms like the one he did today we'll talk about?
Well, I think he has an issue of, it would appear for me, just from my perspective, of confidence within his own cabinet. And I would say there's an issue of leadership within his own team. There's an issue of performance with the economy, which is not going where it needs to. And I still think, whether the polls are going up 1% from where it is, we haven't got a lot of confidence in the electorate in the direction of the companies in the country. So probably performance will be the thing that really demarks him. It's not going to be a little affair on the side that's going to hurt the rail. But I don't think it's going to give him any more help in a re-election in the future. There's a real issue, I think, a crisis of confidence in the country, and he's not providing any help.
All right, a crisis of confidence in the country, but the president announcing that there would be 50 billion euros of costs cut over 3 years. And he's also announced a reduction of payroll taxes. Is this, would you say, a U-turn for the government's policy?
It's what has been said a couple of months ago, remember. It was 50 billions over the 5 years. We voted 15 billions this year for 2014. And the second step is that we voted 1 year ago the CICE. This is a kind of reduction in tax paid by companies and on the labor cost. And it has been what François Hollande has said is that there will be a decrease by 30 billion euros, including the 20 billions that have been already voted for the crédit d'impôt, the reduction on for innovation and employment.
But are voters from the left going to say that this is austerity?
No,
this is belt-tightening, this is austerity.
And what François Hollande insists on is that there will be counterpart to that. Companies, if they benefit from this reduction in the labor cost, they will need to give strong commitment for employment. And this will be defined in the coming weeks. So this is part of the deal. This is not a free lunch.
Bastien Lucas, this lowering of payroll taxes, how important is it to entrepreneurs?
But the thing is, you cannot force people to employ before. So, but the thing is, we want to employ. So on this, there's no doubt. It's a major issue. It's a major issue, and we are really blocked in France.
So it is a major policy shift on the part of the president.
It's not. Maybe I will.
I agree. It's not a major shift. I mean, he said that before. So, but it's a good thing to lower our charges when we employ someone. When you hire someone, he costs you 1.8 what he earns. So what we're saying last time is there's too big difference between the net and the gross, and that's the main issue. And it's also really unfair in France how it works because big companies or companies in new technologies will not pay some taxes, whereas companies like mine will have all the taxes, so will be almost times 2, and this is a huge inequality. So that's something they have to bargain also. The government needs to do something on that also. But it's a really good point that they can lower the charges, and we will employ, definitely. I will employ.
The move welcomed by small businesses like yours, the move welcomed by the Business Leaders Association. How's the move going to be received by the traditional electorate of François Hollande on the left?
I think it's pretty good issue and pretty hard to solve for the president and his team and the government. I think now we enter a 6 month period of election, and the government is looking clearly for allies. And for the last 18 months, he tried to have strong allies from the Green parties, from the Communist parties, but it seems that it's getting no real success for him. So now he tries to move a little bit towards companies, towards entrepreneurs, and maybe try something different. So I don't think it's a U-turn I think when he made his speech on December 31st, sorry, he tried to change things, and this is a second step. So I think we have to wait for a few months to see if it was a good move.
One of the interesting points at the press conference in France, there have been governments in the past on the left that have done business-friendly reforms at times, but a taboo up to today for a French president to say that he's not a socialist, but a social democrat.
Am I a social democrat? Yes. This responsibility pact is a form of social compromise. Therefore, it is a social democratic pact. If being on the left meant just increasing deficits, then those who governed before me were the extreme left.
He said, I'm a social democrat. Times have changed, have they not, Valérie Rabault?
He has already said that a couple of years ago. I remember in Brussels. So it's not new. He said, he started the press conference, because there was a question linked to that, saying, I've been a socialist, I've been elected by left-wing people, and I am also a social democrat. But he's already said that a couple of. I've heard that a couple of years ago in Brussels.
There's the policies in practice, and then there's the rhetoric of the party, where you still sing the Internationale.
What does it mean? It means, as it was said, a social compromise. It means that you need to negotiate between all parties to see, okay, we will make an effort on that. We will decrease some tax on salaries, etc. But we want to have a counterpart to that. This is crucial. This is not a free lunch.
Minter Dahl, how will that statement saying, yeah, I'm a social democrat, go?
Right, so I'm not sure how much everyone really understands the nuance between what is a Schroeder policy and our ability to understand this compromise you're talking about. I consider it a handcuffed liberalism. And as soon as you handcuff freedom, it seems like it's not so freedom. So as an entrepreneur, I think it's going to be difficult to really believe that we're going to get what's being talked about, these words, and where are the actions that are going to help really drive demand, which is really what it has to be, what it's going to come down to create the desire to hire people.
But again, will in the end, I mean, this is a change of tack when you have the president saying this.
I think it's I mean, if you look in the United States or even in England, you have two parties, and in the end of the day, there's sort of a borrowing and swapping in arguments, and then actually what's said and what's done, there's a whole lot of vagaries, and I think it's the wrong argument for me. I think that the real argument is, where's the action? Get off the words and start talking actions. Where are they happening? And I think that's the real argument.
And this lowering of payroll taxes?
I think that's a necessary. It's at least a necessary thing. But he also talked about having, France being a great place for people to come back to work to. All the people who are leaving because it's a better environment for entrepreneurs everywhere. You have access to money, all these other things which exist in countries like England, in the States, or elsewhere. And he's going to say, well, bring it back. Well, okay, what exactly is going to happen to make that come to fruition?
Bastien Lecoz, are people going to start to come back?
According to people around me, they won't come back, that's for sure. Maybe later, because it's really the crisis in France, and we feel it because we want to sell products and people don't want to buy it because they have no money. So this is one fact why they won't come back. And the atmosphere in France is not good because everybody's complaining, everybody's unhappy. I know that's a French characteristic, but these days it's really terrible. So,
there was a business leaders survey done a few days ago that showed that the opinion of France's economy and even its industry is much higher abroad than it is here in France among the French themselves.
Okay,
that you heard about the survey.
Yeah, I've heard it, but it's typical for French people. We see from outside, when you live abroad, you have a better image of your own country than the one you have when you are living in the country. This is not new, but this has been again confirmed by the survey you mentioned. But I think for sure, I remember there was a very good Reuters ranking showing that France is producing 13% of innovation, of worldwide innovation. Germany 1%. This is a ranking done by Reuters. So I think the perception we have about ourselves is worse than the one that other people have about us.
What are your friends who are not coming back saying? Why are they not?
The thing is maybe we produce more, but we produce much more effort to reach something in France. That's maybe the thing, I think, in my opinion, and in their opinion. The thing is, in France, if you want to succeed something, you will have to fight crazy, whereas in some countries, maybe China, Turkey, Hong Kong,
China,
maybe Argentina. No, but you have a market.
So
I mean, you have a market, so the growth will be much quicker.
People, so.
And also, it's Also, there's one true thing. They are happy to get rid of all this negativism you have in France. I mean, it could be in the media and everything. That's a real problem, and that's what make people not consume. And so people, companies like me, we cannot sell things.
One of the things I see is that we're talking about what French people are saying, but we find a big difference between what they say and what they do. You take in your polls how the Front National is judged. Are you going to vote for them? They say, no, not me in the polls, but then behind, they're always more. So there are these French differences, whether it's, the way we view privacy in France and the way we always criticize. So these are maybe what we have, but I'm not sure that they're good, and I certainly don't believe that they are indicative of a good future, to continue to think that privacy must be separated from professional. If we're asking for privacy and transparency to happen, when you're in a company, you're asking now about their ethics. And while there's maybe transparency on financial accounting and GAAP accounting, we're now asking about ethics. And this borders back into, not private per se, but it's much more personal and much more real when you're working for a company you feel has strong values. And so you can't be just in professional values, we have to be in personal values.
Into personal values. And again, it brings us back to the image that the president projects. And the president has had projected so far an image of waffling.
It's true that the perception of the image of the president is not that good as it should be. I agree with you. But what is very clear is that the cap is the same. There is no bigger... He has not changed his mind. And the cap on economic is that we have two issues that we need to handle. The first one is demand. We have a lack of demand in France, and we have a lack of offer. And this configuration has never happened in the economic situation of our country. So we need to solve these two issues together. And of course, the solutions are not the same. So this is why the legibility or the visibility of the cap might be difficult to get. Because of these two issues.
Hard to read. Growth projections for France vary between 0.8 and 0.9% for this year. That is well below the 1.5% mark, above which an economy starts to create jobs in earnest. 1.6% is what is projected for 2015, but that'll be next year. In light of that, again, as Minter was just saying, the need for a strong leader who is in charge and who's decisive, going out on a scooter with your motorcycle helmet. Yes. How does that play into that image exactly?
No, but you have another image. Is François Hollande when he was in Mali, in Centrafrique as well. So you have this perception of the chief. And I think we should switch as well to economy for that one.
Raphaël Leclerc, is that a valid point that on foreign policy, the president made a snap decision to intervene in Mali? He's now intervened in the Central African Republic. He has shown leadership on those fronts. Is that going to be enough to reverse the image that we mentioned of a waffling president?
Well, I think when we look at 2013 and Hollande popularity, we see two major points. First one was on the homosexual marriage, and the other one was on Mali. At that 2 points, Hollande showed that he was strong, that he could keep the cap and the direction. So I think this shows that when he stays like this, he can make progress. And I think he wants to do the same now for this new year. And the second point I want to make is when we look at foreign affairs. On foreign affairs, he's with Laurent Fabius and Jean-Yves Le Drian. which are maybe two of the main character.
The foreign and the defense minister.
Yeah, two of the major minister. And when we look at domestic affairs, maybe the minister are not that good. It's a huge criticism that you can see on polls, but truly Laurent Fabius and Jean-Yves Le Drian are one of the best ministers, while it's pretty weak sometimes on the domestic point of view.
All right, so there's a clear chain of command on foreign policy, but Valérie Rabault, when it comes to domestic policy, would you say that his handling of finance mirrors a little bit that of his personal life, in the sense that you have these strong personalities and you don't know which one is actually in charge at the finance ministry at any given moment?
It's true that on foreign affairs there is a clear cap, and I think everyone agrees on it. On domestic affairs, I don't think it has something to do with his private life, for sure. But what we need is to have a clear cap that is being shown to people, clear direction. And the difficulty is that it's less easy than for foreign affairs. For foreign affairs, you have one goal.
But when you had Dominique Strauss-Kahn as finance minister, when you had Christine Lagarde as finance minister, these people were the ones in charge of the economy, and that was it. Whereas with François Hollande, there's the sense that there's no real one person who's managing the affair.
There may be 7 ministers at Bercy. It might be too.
At the finance ministry.
Yes, at the finance ministry, it might be too much.
Raphaël Leclerc.
And I think what you're asking here is if we had to change prime minister or minister at Bercy, what could be an alternative? And when we look at polls, French people say, well, maybe Louis Gallois, maybe Pascal Lamy, maybe Martine Aubry, and that's pretty much about it. So not a lot of talent, or maybe Ségolène Royal. There are not a lot of possible high-level ministers as Laurent Fabius that could replace, for example, Moscovici at Bercy.
So, Minter Dial, we see there could be a shake-up in his personal life. Is there going to be a shake-up in his cabinet as well now?
Well, I don't think that there's good pickings within, as you say, the talent that's actually going to drive it. I think he has to show the leadership, and so maybe by being decisive in his leadership, that will help. I think it's highly revealing that we have an issue with the domestic affairs, but I think we really have an issue of confidence in the person, and so just.
So how does he do it now? Going forth to this Washington state visit, how does he go public about talking about his personal life? Because he's going to have to. The taxpayers are paying for that staff job, but for the First Lady.
I think that it's going to happen by figuring out what is going to be his legacy. And right now there is no legacy. And whether it's a foreign affairs action, which typical American presidents do, when they're in a crisis internally, then they go out and make a war or something like that. I think maybe it's going to be in foreign affairs where he shows decisiveness and he can find a way to raise a flag. And this is the legacy of my presidency. I think that this can.
But between now and February 11th, how does he break the news of what he's decided, whether or not Valérie Trierweiler is still the first?
Well, first of all, maybe Valérie Trierweiler has to recuperate and come out, and then we can maybe talk about that. So that's a question mark. What does he decide? We have to decide the definition of this First Lady. I think that needs to be clarified. I think he has to decide really more what is he going to do for his presidency, and then the rest will sort of calm down.
Right, he has to decide what he needs to do professionally. More so than as personally. Comment, and we'll leave it there. Louise telling us the media must stay out of the president's private life for the good of the country. Well, we'll stay out of it now because we are out of time. But I want to thank Valérie Rabault, Bastien Lecoz, Raphaël Leclerc, and Minter Dial for being with us. Thank you for joining us here for the France 24 debate.